Hey everybody, it's Caleb. And after talking to a lot of y'all on Instagram, I wanted to cover today on how to overcome the fear of failure. And funny story, this is actually my second time filming this video because the first time I didn't turn my microphone on. This little green dot was not shining. So when I went to edit the video, I was trying to figure out why there was no sound. And it turns out because I failed. So, what a perfect time to talk about overcoming the fear of failure because I just failed epically. But I got a nice run through of everything that I want to talk about. So, maybe the second time I'll be able to cover it even better. So, I'm just going to take it as an opportunity to do better than I did the first time. But I want to talk about the overcoming the fear of failure because after talking to a lot of you on Instagram, like I just said, and actually I specifically was talking to this one gentleman, and he was telling me how his greatest obstacle to starting is his fear of failure, because he's got kids, got a family, got a job, all these things, all this responsibility, the weight of that responsibility on his shoulders, and that fear of failure can be an all-consuming thing. You can feel like feel like you've missed the train. You're too old, you're too young, you're too fat, too slow, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too ugly, you're too pretty, whatever it may be. There's people that have fears of failure tied to so many different things. But I used to struggle with the same thing for the longest time. Actually, one of the things that I make a joke about is growing up, and even now, a lot of my friends always ask me, "Man, how are you so good at all these things?" It seems like everything you do, you're just good at it naturally. And I make the joke of that's because I only do things I know I'm going to be good at. I don't play games that I don't know if I'm going to be good at it. I won't play sports that I don't know if I'll be good at it, and all these sorts of things. And I've gotten a little bit better at trying things that I know I most likely will fail at in order to challenge myself. But, even when I was younger, I would only do things I was good at because I was afraid of failing and, looking stupid, looking dumb, whatever it may be. And that's because, tying into one of the first things I want to talk about is why we have that fear, what that fear is, and what we need to shift our mind to in order to begin operating in a better mindset towards this failure. Because the thing is, though, is failure is not bad. Now, that sounds kind of weird because, I'm like, oh, no, failure's pretty bad. If I fail, then I did it wrong, and it's important to understand that failure is actually just a part of the process of learning and discovery. Actually, the scientific method, which a lot of us, most of us, all of us should have learned some point during our elementary to middle school education years, is how the scientific method is you create a hypothesis, you conduct an experiment, you collect the data, and you come up with a conclusion. Now, thing is though, is that conclusion can say, my hypothesis was wrong, the data states this, so my conclusion is this. So you actually say you failed your hypothesis, but it was actually a correct and successful use of the scientific method. So what may be failure is actually just the process of you learning and you discovering. You're discovering more about yourself. You're learning more of who you are and the depth of your purpose and the depth of what you have inside of you. And so it's not something to be feared, or it's not something to be afraid of. But the reason why we are fearful of it is because, and I thought about this a lot, and I've thought about a lot of things over the years of what fear is. And because its fear is tied to negative emotions, because it's a negative emotion, and it's because we tie fear, and it's based in pride. Said fear is based in pride. So whenever you're afraid of something, whenever you have fear to do something, it's because it's based in pride. And I know pride, a lot of times people think pride and only equate it or relate it to like this conceited, puffed up, I'm better than everybody type thing. But pride is just an overinflated sense of self, narcissistic tendencies, which tends to think about yourself over everybody else, because that pride, that fear, which is ego driven, and that's what that pride is. Pride is your ego. It's ego driven, and it's an externally based ego driven emotion, because you are afraid of failing, not because of the actual failure, but because of what you think other people will think about that failure, what will think about you about that failure. And so you are looking externally, and you're letting that confirm or affect your internal self. And so you give this pride, or you have this pride towards the outcome of the failure, or the outcome of whatever it is. And so when you fail, your pride, your ego takes a hit. So what's the opposite of that? How do we deal, or how do we change our mind to stop operating in pride and in fear, and then to begin to be able to find success? Well, in Proverbs, which is a book of the Bible written by King Solomon, who historians, biblical and otherwise, agree was one of the wisest men to ever live, says in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 2, I believe, 2, is pride brings disgrace, but humility brings wisdom. But he who is humble, he who has humility, will find wisdom. And wisdom, this is not part of the problem, but this is just from experience, is wisdom breeds success. Because like King Solomon, he had a choice. It says in the Bible that God approached King Solomon and asked him, would he rather have riches or wisdom? And King Solomon chose wisdom. And because of that wisdom, he actually became one of the richest men to ever live. Because when you have wisdom and you apply it to your life, because wisdom is knowledge applied correctly. And so when you have the knowledge and you have the wisdom to apply it to your life, you will begin to see success, because that is what it brings. Wisdom brings success, because when you make wise choices, you receive good things. One of my favorite things that a counselor I see told me when I first started seeing him 7 odd, 8 odd, 6 odd, a long time ago, was that most things in life are not boiled down to right or wrong. Most things in life are boiled down to wise or foolish. What may be wise for somebody in one situation would be foolish for one in another situation. For an example, I am 27, sorry. Sometimes I forget how old I am. 27 years old. I have a wife, I have a child, I have a home, I have, all these responsibilities. It would be foolish of me to decide to quit my job, drop everything, and go backpack across Europe. Now, 20-year-old Caleb, who wasn't married and didn't have a child and all these responsibilities, that may have not been as foolish, because I could have gone and done that. And maybe at that time, depending on who you are, you learn a lot about yourself, all that sort of thing. So what's wise for somebody is foolish for another. And so it's important to realize that the choices you make, when you make them wisely, they will bring success. Like I said, if I made the foolish choice of quitting my job, leaving my family, and going backpacking across Europe, that would not bring success to my life. That would bring catastrophic failure. That might be failure that I would not come back from. And so it's important to begin to operate in humility. And we'll talk more about how to do that later in the video, when I go through step by step the 4 steps that you need to overcome the fear of failure. But it's important to realize, before we go any further, that the fear of failure has killed more dreams than actual failure ever will, and quite possibly ever has. Because if you look at it, if you think about it, I cannot think of one example of where actual failure has killed dreams, killed somebody's dreams. Unless it actually like physically killed them. And then even then you can't say it killed their dreams, because if they would have survived, who knows? But the fear of failure will kill every dream if you allow it. Failure will never kill your dreams unless you allow it. The fear of failure will kill every dream if you allow it. So it's important that we understand that failure is okay. It's not to be feared. It's actually to be learned from. But we have to understand that fear, and like I said earlier, talking to people who they have this fear of failure because they have this responsibility and the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. And I get that. Like I said, I am a father. I am a husband. I have a job. I have a job where people depend on me for things. The fear of failure, I get it. I get it. It can be consuming. It can be debilitating and paralyzing. And when you feel it, you don't know what to do. But it's important that you realize that whether you feel the fear of failure or not does not actually dictate whether you fail or not. You cannot feel failure or not fear failure and fail. And you can fear failure and not fail. So it's important to realize that fear does not dictate or predetermine what the outcome of your action is going to be. So that's all great information. And you're saying, yeah, okay, cool. But how do I actually, what do I do? What do I do? Step by step. Men, we like lists. That's why, and generally speaking, men like math and science, stuff like that, because we like equations. You do this, you get this. That's why, like, you do this, you get this. And so we like that formula. Do this. This is what you achieve. Well, I'm excited to tell you that I do have steps you can follow that will guarantee that you will not be, bothered by the fear of failure. So you may fail, but fear of failure will no longer be an issue. And actually what you'll find is when that goes away and you begin to operate in the humility that brings the wisdom, you will have more success. And so steps to overcome fear. I'm just checking my notes over here real quick. Steps to overcome fear. Number one, first step to overcome fear is to start anyway. Whatever it is, whatever your fear is of failing, whatever you're afraid of failing at, whatever it is, do it anyways. Start it anyways. Start right now. Start today. One of my favorite quotes by John Wayne. If you don't know John Wayne, go look him up. He's a very, very famous actor. Does mostly cowboy movies. Grew up watching him. He's awesome. Got a lot of great stuff. But one of my favorite quotes by him, actually one of my favorite quotes, and it's by him. I think a football coach or something when I was younger said it, but it's, courage is not the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and saddling up anyways. So you're going to have a little bit of courage. And courage is not the absence of fear. It's you feel it. You get it. You got it. Okay, I feel it, but I'm going to do it anyways. Because, you already are afraid of failing. So the worst thing that could happen is you fail. But you already have thought that, expected that. And so, honestly, what's the worst that could happen? But so many times, we have this negative mindset when we're doing something that we don't have a guaranteed outcome on. And so it's like, what if, that what if? What if I fail? What if I look stupid? What if everybody laughs at me? What if I find out I'm not good enough? What if I'm not, ready like I thought I was? What if? And so it's important that we also, when you feel those things, flip it around. What if I succeed? What if everything that I've been hoping and dreaming for is in my grasp and all I have to do is start? What if all the things that I desire for my life are just one action away from achieving? What if I get everything that I've been dreaming for? What if I get everything that I've been praying for? What if I change my life? What if it works? What if I succeed? What if? So often we use that in a negative sense, but I think it's important that we turn it around. And it's not to say that we then never expect failure. You know, we go the opposite end of the extreme, to the opposite end of the pride and the narcissism and the ego. But we understand that there's a balance. Well, what if I fail? Okay. Well, what if I fail? That's a good planning tactic. What if I fail? Okay. Well, if I fail, it'd suck. I wouldn't like it. But I'd survive. What if I succeed? What if I succeed? Because if you just, number one, if you think about what if you succeed, most of the time that'll cancel out your fear of failure, because the feeling of what if I succeed will always, at least for me, always outweighs the fear of what happens if I fail. Because, the risk of failing is terrible, but if I succeed, then it's worth it. And so it's important that, you work on that courage, you work on that mindset, and you start anyways. Because number two is remove your, okay, here we go. Number two, remove your ego from the outcome. We talked about earlier that pride and that ego, that external based. When you remove it from the outcome, meaning when you remove the value you place on yourself from the outcome of what you're trying to do, it makes it a lot easier to find success. Because failure is not a definition. Failure does not define you. It is just an experience. Failure is something you experience. Failure is not something you are. Because our ego says we are what we do. So if we fail, we are failures. If we succeed, we are successes. But that's not true. We are who we are, and sometimes we fail, and sometimes we succeed. And so we have to learn to detach our ego from the outcome. Because, number one, that frees you up from, because if your ego is not attached to the outcome, then what do you have to fear? Because the value you have for yourself is not attached to what you do. Because you understand that you are who you are, regardless of the successes or the failures. But it's important to realize, and I'll get into my third point, I'll explain my third point, why it's important to realize, or it's important to base that when we detach ourselves, where it's important to base ourselves then. Because you have to be attached to something. You can't be completely detached from everything in the world, because then you'd be a psychopath. And if you are a psychopath, we need to have a different conversation. But you need to understand, and my third point is to understand who you were created to be. Number three, understand who you were created to be. Now, no matter what you believe, I am here to tell you that you are created in the image of God. And the best thing is, even if you don't believe in God, God still believes in you. He created you in the image of himself. He created you on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. He says, you're fearfully, and the Bible says you're fearfully, wonderfully made. That before you were even in your mother's womb, that he knew you, and he had plans for you, plans to bring you hope and a future, and never to harm you. It says that you are more than a conqueror. It says that you were made to be above and not beneath, the head and not the tail. He created you to be successful in the image of God, because God never fails. It's something that God never fails. Well, if we're created in the image of God, then we are created to be successful. Now, we are human. We have a fallen nature. We're not perfect. So we will fail. But we were not made to be failures. And that's why it's important. So when you understand who you are, that you're not a failure, that you're created in the image of God, and that who you are who you are because he created you to be. Not because of what you do, not because of what you don't do. He said you are who you are the value you are, the value of who you are is not tied into those things, then you're able to detach your ego from the outcome. Then you're able to do things because you understand that you were created to be successful. So then you should do things that should be successful. And so that's why it's important to understand who you are, who God has created you to be. And finally, the fourth thing, and this may be the biggest one, and actually this is probably the biggest thing for my entire program. But I'm going to do a video on this one next, and it's going to be pretty in depth. But it's the fact that you need to understand and recognize that your feelings, while they are real, are not reality. And what does that mean? Well, so many times I see in the world we live in today, because it's the only time of the world that I know about, is that we tie how we feel into our identity, into who we are. We equate with what we feel with who we are. Like I just talked about, we don't equate what we feel or what we think to who we are. We recognize that we're created by God for a purpose. So, how do you stop letting your feelings control? Like I said, it's not the fear of failure that paralyzes you. It's allowing yourself to be consumed by it. When you let yourself be controlled and consumed by those feelings, you paralyze yourself. You won't move, and then you don't know what to do, and then you're stuck, and then you're depressed, and then you have anxiety, and then you have all these things. Well, and I'm not to downplay anything about with depression and anything like that. It's like I've talked about. I have fought and struggled with my own depression. And I'm here to tell you, one of the biggest things and best things that I learned was emotional intelligence, was how to master your own emotions. And now there's different, research and there's different things with chemicals in the brain and all that sort of thing. And like I said, I'm going to do a whole video, talk about all of that when it comes to mastering and you're mastering your emotions and developing strong emotional intelligence. But it's important to recognize that just because you feel something does not make it truth, does not make it reality. So your feelings are facts, meaning right now, I am hungry. That is a fact. I feel hungry. I also feel tired because, like I said, this is the second time I'm filming this video, and it is 12:14, so past midnight. I am tired. I have to get up at 4 a.m. to go run. But the thing is, though, I go to sleep. I eat some food, or I guess I should eat some food and then go to sleep. I'm no longer feeling hungry, no longer feeling tired. They're facts. Facts can change. But truth does not change. Truth was, truth is, and truth always will be. And so, just because you feel something does not make it true, does not make it reality. Because there's so many times where we will, let's say, case in point, an example, someone cuts you off in traffic. You feel angry with that person. And subconsciously, even though we don't think this in our conscious brain, subconsciously we internalize and like, this person hates me, they disrespect me, they want me dead, and it's like, it sounds kind of crazy, but it sounds irrational and a little over exaggerated, but our subconscious mind is a lot of times irrational and over exaggerates. And so we equate our feelings as if though they are real, when in reality, the person didn't see you, they had a bad day, all these sort of things. And so we put these weights on the feelings, and we allow ourselves to be controlled, and we allow our feelings to shape our world. We allow our feelings to control our actions. When the truth is that feelings, while we may have, feelings with negative connotations, feelings with positive connotations, happy, sad, angry, grateful, all sort of things, black and white, positive, negative, it's important to realize that feelings actually are a neutral thing. Feelings are just information. So feelings are an internal response to an external stimulus or an external circumstance, an external experience. All that is That means something happens outside of you, and your body, more so your, and not your physical body, but your mind, your emotions, and in turn that goes with your nervous system. It reacts in a specific way based off of prior experiences, based off of a lot of different things. And so, based off of whether you're hungry. So it's like, you're not you when you're hungry, you're angry, you're hangry, all sort of things. All these sort of things. You said your emotions can are just information that then you need to process. Like case in point, talking about the fear of failure. Okay, so I like to run. I'm currently training to run my third marathon. I'm going to go for a big PR, which I don't actually fear failing the PR. I am definitely very determined to get it. But after that, so that's in March of 2024. In September of 2024, I've decided to run a 100K race, which is like 62 miles. I have a lot of friends and a lot of people I follow that run ultras, and I want to be cool like them. So I decided to do it. And I'm honestly actually terrified because this is something where I'm like, I may fail. I may, and by fail, I mean I may not finish the race because of just how incredibly daunting it seems. I mean, 62 miles. I know people that do 100 milers and all sorts, but like for me, 62 miles is just insane. Like absolutely, like how it'll take me like, I don't know, it's like 14, 16 hours. I don't know, something like that. It's crazy. I'm like, how in the world? What, like that just is a lot. And there's definitely a fear of failure behind it. So instead of letting that fear control me, I understand that fear, while it's a feeling, it's an internal response to an external stimulus. I then look inside. Instead of going outside in, I look inside out. And I go, okay, why am I feeling that fear? Well, I feel that fear because if I fail, if I don't finish, I'll feel like I've gone backwards into, struggling with quitting things. I used to struggle a lot with just an absolute quitter. I would quit just everything and just quit. I was a quitter. It's will I be going back to that? All this sort of, all these things, which are not they're not based in reality. Like I know it's like, well, no, that doesn't make you a quitter. Like it's like if you physically can't do it, like if you like pass out, like, well, my body's not working no more. It's like that's not quitting. Like you're like, oh, I don't want to do this. But it's like so it's something where you begin to realize that these feelings, while they're real, and they need to not be ignored. They need to be, you know, take, like I said, personal inventory and you go, okay, why do I feel this? And then you list out those things and you go, okay, well, that's not true. And even if it was true, it's like, oh, well, blah blah blah. Then it's something that needs to be processed and then resolved, not be consumed by and acted upon. And so it's important to recognize that your feelings, while they're real, are not reality. But you see how all of these tie in together, all four of them. Start anyways. Start anyways. Remove your ego from the outcome. Understand who created you and who you were created to be. And recognize that your feelings are real, but not reality. So all four of those things play a part, one after. You can't have one and not the others. You have to have all four because they all four work simultaneously. Well, why can you start anyway? Why can you have courage even though you feel fear? Well, number one, because you understand that even though you feel fear, that is real. It is not reality because you understand who you were created to be, and so you can attach or detach yourself and your ego from the outcome. So then you're not afraid to start. As you see how, and then it goes back, and then it just goes back, and forth. So it's important to have all four of these together because they all operate at the same time. So what I want you to do, if you've made it this far in the video, you've gotten all four, you're like, great, this is awesome information. I can't wait to try it. I'm going to challenge you something. I want you to today, or whenever you're hearing this for the first time, I want you to stop, or after the video, stop And I want you to think about what is one thing you could do right now, today, to begin to stop letting yourself be controlled by fear, to overcome that fear of failure, and to start changing your life today. If you do all four of these things, I guarantee 100% that you will find success. Not that you will never fail, but that you will find success. Because like I said, when you have that humility, when you detach yourself and your ego from it, you find that humility, that brings wisdom, that brings success. Guaranteed 100%. And so I want you to think about one thing today you can start, whether it be with your physical health, your mental health, your relational health, your financial health, whatever you're afraid to do, whatever you're afraid to start, to try, to change because you're afraid of what happens if you fail. I want you to pick one thing. It can be, it can be, and I would suggest starting with something, the least daunting thing, because there's probably a lot. We all have a lot. Start with the least daunting thing. Get a small victory, because then you'll be like, oh, okay, it's not that bad. I want you to pick that one thing, and I want you to implement these four things today. And I want you to begin to see the change that will happen to you very, very quickly. Once you do that, once you start seeing the changes, once you start having success, I want you to message me on Instagram, to comment below on the video and tell me about it. Because number one, I do all of this because I want to help people. There have been a lot of people that have helped me, that have taught me things in the past so that I could avoid having to learn them the hard way. And I want to be able to teach you things that I learned the hard way so you don't have to. So you can avoid the pitfalls, the time, and everything that it took for me to learn these things. So I want you to implement these today. Send me a message on Instagram, Caleb B for Real, same as my YouTube, and comment here, wherever you can find me. Get in contact with me. Tell me how it helps you. Or if you have any questions about any of these things or how to implement them, comment, message me, whatever it may be. And I'm excited to hear from you and excited to see your life changed, because I promise if you do these things, your life will change quickly, radically, exponentially. So get started today, and I will see you soon. Bye.